Michael, you were talking about the folly of Anthony Albanese going to New York to meet Donald Trump and then asking Trump to come and help out in our region of the world, where Albanese clearly is failing in terms of getting agreement among our Pacific neighbours. I note that one of Biden's key foreign policy advisors in Sydney this week was calling the meeting between Albanese and Trump probably the most important and significant meeting between leaders of our two countries in any of our lifetimes. Would you agree with that? And how well positioned is Anthony Albanese for such a meeting?
No, I don't agree with that. I think we're at risk of overhyping and overthinking this meeting. It's an issue because Prime Minister Albanese has just taken so long to get a first meeting with the American president. And that's a self-inflicted problem. But for Donald Trump, he's got so many other things going on. I don't think he spent much time thinking about this meeting or thinking about Australia. I think it's likely to be short and superficial. But if Mr. Albanese goes in there looking incredibly weak and needy, it could all go very badly wrong.
Yeah, well, that's true. Donald Trump does tend to respect strength, doesn't he? He gives neediness a very short shrift. While all of that is happening, we've got Taiwan with their government releasing a new handbook teaching its citizens how to respond to an invasion from China. This comes obviously as tensions continue to rise between the two nations and the threat of a Chinese offensive looks imminent. A Taiwanese military spokesperson explained the purpose of the book, saying it's not to create panic, but to tell people you need to make preparations while there is peace. And when crisis happens, well, you'll know what to do. The earlier you're prepared, he said, the earlier you study, the earlier you will be safe. When you hear quotes like this from the Taiwanese government, it makes you reflect on quotes like this from the Chinese government. Have a listen.
台湾回归中国是二战胜利成果和战后国际秩序的重要组成部分。1943年，中美英三国政府发表开罗宣言，明确规定将日本窃取的台湾归还中国。
So, Michael, when you've got comments like that from Chinese officials, meanwhile, Taiwan are giving out books on how to prepare for an invasion to their citizenry. Does this indicate that we're reaching a pointy part of this conflict?
Well, James, I think the first thing we've got to do is remind ourselves that that version of history from the Chinese government we just heard is a false version of history. Taiwan has never been ceded as a part of mainland China under communist control. But then we also have to realise Xi Jinping is deadly serious about invading and taking control of Taiwan and its 24 million people who are living happily and successfully in a democracy, making key things for our digital world. So what the Taiwanese government are doing is making that a harder problem for Xi Jinping. Because at the moment, Xi isn't confident he can win, and that's what's stopping him.
Just one more question before we go to a break. I noted that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signed a new strategic defence pact. This was yesterday, with the two nations saying an attack on one would be considered an aggression against both. What does this alignment mean in the current realignment of nations right around the world? And does Israel's attack on Qatar have any bearing on this sudden agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia?
Well, yes. In a way, it's not surprising. The Saudis and the Pakistanis have had close political and military relations for decades. But the mutual defence clause will be worrying India because it looks like it could tie the Saudis into an India-Pakistan conflict. And everybody will be watching, is nuclear weapon cooperation a part of this new deal? I think it's happened because the US looks less reliable as a partner in that part of the world and because of the heightened fears because of Israeli power.
Michael Shoebridge, always appreciate your insights. Thanks for coming on the program tonight.